starting.
Hey there, and welcome to another edition of Welcome to the Jungle. On this episode, Tim, Daniel, and I, Seth Shaner, will talk about your Cincinnati Bengals, and we are part of the Riverfront on the Blue Wire Podcast Network. And Tim, Daniel, thanks for sitting down with me again.
Thanks, Seth. This should be fun. More fun than the second half was.
You and I were texting that night. Forget the tweets. We were texting and literally a bad harbinger, right? I said they just have to keep it up because you said the defense is playing well.
Yeah. Yeah. Spoke too soon.
We did. Well, we have to look back on last Thursday really quickly. We'll go through that rather quickly. Joe Burrow, again, amazing. I actually looked up the box score, and I got halfway through writing stuff down, and I realized I was looking at the previous game's box score because both of them, he did great. So the two games, 30 for 39, 392, 5 TDs, and an interception in the first game against the Ravens. 34 of 56 for 428 yards and 4 TDs in the second. Same with Jamar Chase. 10 catches, 193 yards, and 2 touchdowns in the first game. 11 catches, 264 yards, and 3 TDs in the second game. These are two games played against the Baltimore Ravens and lost in the fourth quarter.
Yep. This game reminded me a lot of, do you remember in 2006, there was a game where they played the San Diego Chargers and they were up 28-7 at halftime and they ended up losing 49-41, but Carson and Chad had I think it's Chad's best game statistically of his career, actually. I think it was 11, 266 and 3.
Yes.
That's what this game is. That's literally this game just years later. So it was pretty frustrating. I know everyone's kind of asking the question of should they have gone for 2 there. I 1,000% agree that they did. I think I'm just giving Jamar a chance to win the game there more than I'm giving Tanner Hudson a chance to win the game. And you can't fault Joe. I know he's kind of reacting immediately and maybe rushed it a bit there. But my thought process is, from my couch with eating popcorn is, why doesn't he throw the Jamar to try to win the game there?
Well, my problem is twofold on that. Number one, they looked at what everything was lined up for the Ravens. They realized they had Jamar in single coverage out to Joe's left. And then they called timeout. And then they came back on the field, and I thought, well, they're lined up a little different. That's kind of funny. But then they sent Jamar back in motion right to left. He gets out there, and it's evident again, it's single coverage. Tim, I cover high school football. I call the games for Bishop Watterson here in Columbus. I went on the field. There's a guy who's a former head coach, and now he's an assistant for Watterson. He was a head coach a couple of years ago elsewhere. And I said, hey, I understand heat of the moment, things like that, but how do you not throw to the guy that has 266 yards receiving and he's got single coverage up top on a 2-point conversion? Don't you try to win with your best player? He did kind of say, hey, time and place. There might have been something they saw. He tried to give them an out a little bit, but at the same time, it felt like, it doesn't make sense. Like, post him up like a power forward and just throw it to him.
Yeah.
That's all they had to do. And even the problem, though, I guess, if you're telling me, well, it was a more complicated play and Hudson was the first read and Jamar would have been the second or third read because Gesicki's getting held, and then here comes Jamar across the back of the end zone, you haven't had time all night. He got hit 13 times, Joe Burrow did.
Right.
Draw up a play where it's out right away, which is what Joe's really good at. So that's definitely – it was a 21-7 lead in the third quarter, though. Both games they led by double digits late in the second half.
Yeah, and right now it's the difference in the season because you win those 2 games, you're 6-4, and Joe Burrow is probably number 1 in the MVP conversation right now with the season he's having. And it also goes for that Kansas City game. You hold on to that game, you're 7-3. And we're having a whole different conversation right now. We're going, yeah, the defense is frustrating, but the offense is so good, they're finding ways to win. And right now, it's the offense is so good, they're finding ways to lose. And it's really, really irritating. And it's really building up. And I think what's kind of really frustrating about this is not just necessarily, I know the expectations we talked about last week, but all these games are losing minus the Eagles game.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely winnable games.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. No doubt. Now, the other thing is, though, having a game on Thursday night, while in some ways stinks for the team, I'm sure, especially we talked last week about them having to travel. But then also, you've got the quick turnaround and all that. As fans, we got to watch what happened this weekend.
Yeah.
And across the board, for the most part, everything lined up. The Bengals at 4-6 still have a path into the playoffs. And we're not sitting here trying to tell you that they're not extremely flawed, because they are.
Yeah.
The Broncos are 5-5, and they're currently in the playoffs. And guess what? At the end of the year, we'll go over it in a minute. They get to play each other. So that's big. I will tell you, though, as I sat with my son, I came in the room in the afternoon as that game was ending. I knew right away, hey, the Chiefs are undefeated. The Chiefs are winning their division. We need to root for the Chiefs against teams like the Broncos.
Right.
And I knew that right away. And yet it was still very hard to root for the Chiefs in that game. And they got the block of a 32-yard field goal at the end. The Chiefs are the team that find ways to win. I mean, they're undefeated, and yet they've should have probably lost 4 games already.
Yeah, I'm not sold. This feels like that time when the Steelers went undefeated, and then they went into Monday Night Football, and Von Bell, as we know, history says, basically took Juju Smith-Schuster out of the world for a minute.
Yes.
That's what this Chiefs team reminds me of. Much better team than that, obviously, but just always has these like sneaky little wins where you're like, is this? And I understand they have Pat Mahomes. And it's like, is this legit? Like, can they continue to win this way this season? And so far they have. But I'm not really like I mean, they're certainly dangerous, but they're probably the ones that are probably the happiest the most the Bengals are struggling, because they know damn well that if they match up with the Bengals, it's probably their toughest matchup of any other teams available in the AFC.
Well, so the Broncos are there. The Colts are 4-6 like the Bengals. Now, I don't know what this is worth, but the NFL.com playoff probability, the Bengals are at 28%. The Colts only at 22%. Who knows, Joe Flacco, is he going to be able to resurrect another team, a floundering team at the end of a season at his age? So on the schedule front, Chargers, they could be caught. They're 6-3, though. The Bengals play them Sunday night. No late night Reds yet again, because they got flexed into Sunday night. The Bengals will be playing opposite your normal time. Bengals get a chance to prove that your favorite team in city, the Steelers, are frauds. They get two shots at them, so that's good. I don't know if they can catch the Steelers, but beating the Steelers would mean jumping right back in that playoff discussion. Another positive, Tim, they don't have to play the Ravens anymore.
There's that.
They get to play Dallas Week 14 with no Dak Prescott.
Big on Monday Night Football, yeah.
Tennessee's on the schedule, as are the Browns again. So schedule lines up pretty well, wouldn't you say?
Schedule lines up well, and they're getting guys back, and that's kind of been that's kind of helpful as well. Obviously, I still think the issue that the Bengals team is having is the same issue we've had in the Joe Burrow era for a long time now, is they don't have a running scheme, and essentially at some point, Burrow's been absolutely incredible, and he is for sure one of those guys. But at some point, he's gonna, don't you think they're gonna need that in the playoffs? And Chase Brown's certainly talented enough, and I like getting going and get Khalil Herbert. And then I know they signed a guy yesterday. I can't tell you anything about him, to be honest.
We'll get there in a moment.
Yeah, but they're 29th in rushing right now. And as much as I can agree that Joe Mixon was definitely the problem in the passing and pass protection, I don't really know if, and I know it's easy to say with this Houston numbers right now, and they just have a better running scheme. I mean, if Joe Burrow had a running scheme that could kind of take a little bit more pressure off him, so he's not throwing 56 times, and we can eke out a few more possessions against the Ravens, that's another thing where maybe we're having a different convo.
I think you're right, but at the same time, while I will defend Joe Burrow and almost everything, I mean, we're at the point with Joe Burrow where if any other fan base makes fun of Joe Burrow or says anything about Joe Burrow, I'm not talking to you today. We're done. Joe Burrow to me he's far surpassed anything Carson Palmer ever became. He's up there with when I was way younger with Boomer Esiason as far as he is our franchise, and he is who I will go follow into quote unquote fake battle, right? Okay. But Joe Burrow joined a Bengals team that was built like the Sean McVay Rams in being a more of a two tight end running type offense. And within half a season, and especially by 2021, Burrow had gotten himself into that offensive meeting room and basically turned the offense into the LSU offense.
Yeah.
So the running attack, people say, well, Joe Mixon, you thought he was washed up. Well, he wasn't a good shotgun-based runner.
Right.
He's gone down to Houston to a defensive-minded head coach where the edict, the mandate down there is to basically be what I would have called in the 90s a pro-style offense.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes a more bruising running game. And so this was all done for Joe Burrow to have the offense that he wants. It means it's very effective to throw it to his guys and those things. But while he's got to be frustrated, we understand he's frustrated. He doesn't really want to revert to the Peyton Manning or the old I-back situation either. So it's a tough spot to be in, I guess, at the end of the day, because I think Joe has the type of offense he wants without the production running game.
That's fair. Maybe they're kind of looking at it, the short pass game as their running game, and I can see that. They're certainly talented enough to have that situation, like Chase Brown coming out of the backfield. And I know Chase Brown did have the fumble that really kind of started the demise. But
yeah, that turned the game around. He did have 9 catches for 52 yards, and then he had 42 yards rushing. So he had a decent game with the exception of that fumble because the Bengals were driving. The Ravens defense, the funny thing is the Ravens defense is as bad almost, it feels like, as the Bengals defense.
Yeah.
So, and it's a funny thing too. They're having kicking issues on both teams that you wouldn't have expected even 6 months to a year ago. So back to the schedule though, that Broncos matchup, week 17, the second to last game of the season, the Bengals will play the Broncos with a possibility of a playoff spot on the line. I'd like to still see them be in it by then. They're very flawed though, the Bengals.
Yeah, and we're not telling you anything people don't already know, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can't tackle. They have no pass rush, and if a good pass rush we're probably looking at a secondary a little bit better than we are right now. And I think that the other thing that's been really irritating with this Bengals team is just it seems like they just can't ever force a turnover. It seems like it's like we're kind of, and they did in the Raiders game. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But Gardner Minshew and Desmond Ridder, like we talked about, compared to Lamar
And it
Jackson.
looked like CTB had the one on the diving interception. He sold it really well, but it didn't get. It got overturned. It was absolutely the right call. It hit the ground.
It was, yeah.
I want you to close your eyes for a moment and picture that you're the 2018 Patriots, run by Bill Belichick. Tom Brady's still there. On a Monday after playing on a Thursday, you bring in 2 over-the-hill players, an over-the-hill running back, an over-the-hill defensive back, a corner, and you try them out. And Bill Belichick looks at it and says, nope, they're done. We're not going to sign them. And you send them on their way. The narrative would be, oh, yeah, that's Bill making a good decision. They took a look, but kicked the tires, but the tires were flat. So they don't want them. The Bengals bring in Leonard Fournette and Xavier Howard on Monday. And Fournette, apparently, the narrative is, yeah, he's over the hill. They didn't want to sign him. They ended up signing Gary Brightwell to the practice squad, former Giants running back. But with Xavier Howard, the narrative is they wouldn't give him enough money. And maybe that is true, but there's a reason Xavier Howard's sitting on his couch all year. So again, we fall under that narrative type stuff with the Bengals. If you put it under a different franchise, I think maybe the national, conversation is different.
It's definitely different. It's just kind of how it goes. And I'm all for the Bengals signing guys to get better. But they obviously saw something they didn't like or something in that situation. And if I can't go on the red shows and say I don't care about money, I'm going to come here and not see the same thing.
Yeah.
So if they thought he was going to be much better to help this team out, they probably are willing to put a little more extra cash on his contract for the whatever 7 games he's going to be here.
It's a prorated amount. Yep.
Yeah. So, but such is life.
Well, and I picture Xavier Howard back in like 2022 getting just torched by T. Higgins.
Yeah.
So that was when he was supposedly the best corner in football at the time, and they doubled Jamar, and then T just lit him up. So it's tough. Whatever. I wish they had signed guys in the offseason for veteran depth, but they did not. So that's where they are as they head into this weekend. All right, so a look at the Chargers game. As mentioned, flex into Sunday night, so it's another primetime game. I did see you tweet kind of like incredulously, like, why would they want to do this? Why would the nation doesn't want to see this bad team, the Bengals? The nation would like to see Jamar Chase do what he did the other night
Yeah,
and Joe Burrow do the same. So that's
sure.
probably what it's
That's
all
fair.
about. And as mentioned, the Chargers are 6-3. They're coached by Jim Harbaugh,
Mhm.
and as an Ohio State and a Bengals fan, the Harbaugh brothers can retire as soon as possible, as far as I'm concerned, and that would be fine by me. As an Ohio State graduate, I am excited that J.K. Dobbins is healthy this year. I just hope he doesn't do much against the Bengals on Sunday.
Yeah, I hope the other Ohio State guy who's really good at stopping the run, and Sam Hubbard, has a better day than J.K. Dobbins.
There you go.
But I am happy that he is healthy. And Chargers are another team who, like you said, they're 6-3. They've played pretty well through the year. Harbaugh's definitely done something to revitalize them. The stupidness of me here, Seth, that's going to talk, is that I really want to win this game more than anything, because there was those 2 years between the Burrow injury and before the Super Bowl run. There's a lot of, is Justin Herbert better than Joe Burrow conversations. And Herbert's had a really good year. He's got 11 touchdowns, 1 pick, but has not been on the level of Burrow throughout the season. And I just want to kind of make sure that anytime that those two match up against each other, I want Burrow to get the win. Obviously, as a Bengals fan, but also just kind of prove the point of, like, no, we picked the right guy.
Well, the dumbest thing about that discussion, and it's not you that's dumb, it's the discussion as a whole,
Yeah.
because Joe tore his ACL in that first season, he's basically 6 or 7 games behind him on all these stats. So, like, Burrow reaches these plateaus almost at the same games played, but he's about half a year behind in injury. And then the last year he got hurt as well. So, Herbert is a good quarterback. He's got a great arm, but you'll never catch me think that Joe Burrow is not the better guy. And I think most people that have watched both guys play feel that way as well.
You hope so, right? I mean, it's kind of the obvious situation there. But as far as this matchup goes, the things that really kind of jump out to me is obviously that um, even with Herbert having a decent year and J.K. Dobbins being healthy, Chargers offense haven't been super impressive by any means. They're 22nd in the league in passing yards, 19th in rushing, 19th in points. But defensively, they get after it, man. 10th in passing, 9th in rushing, and 6th overall defense. So there's a lot to kind of like about on that side of the ball for them. It's just that with how good they have been in all those games, how are they going to stack up in a situation like this week? So last week, you look at their wins, and
Now,
maybe
yes, I was about to do the same. Go ahead.
Vegas, Carolina, Denver, New Orleans, Cleveland, Tennessee, and their losses are Pittsburgh, Kansas City, and Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like when they play good teams, now you can specify if you think the Bengals are a good team or not, then they're outdone. But when they take advantage of the teams that are lesser than them, is when they're getting these wins. So right now they're 1.5-point favorites, but it's right now a game I could really see going either way, because I don't know which team I trust less in the circumstances.
Yeah, their only win against a playoff contender or a team currently in the playoff picture is against the Broncos by a touchdown back on October 13th. So yeah, I think if you could pull out 2 Ravens games and the Chiefs games from the Bengals schedule, you'd be looking at a very similar resume there, especially given that the Bengals played a now suddenly decent Eagles team. So
yeah, for sure.
The schedule so far certainly does, and that's what my son was asking me the other day. Well, obviously the Chiefs beat them in the one time they've played, but their division is pretty garbage, and the Bengals are getting to play everybody in that division. So I'm not that worried about certainly that game on its face, but at the other side, you're going all the way across country. It's at the place where they lost the Super Bowl. Certainly, I like to, exercise some of those demons. So
For sure.
Bengals at Chargers, Sunday Night Football. No late night Reds that night, Tim, but we will be hunkered down, eagerly awaiting your tweets and enjoying.
I'm on Blue Sky now. What are you talking about?
I wondered why I haven't seen you as much lately.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. How many other social media platforms are there going to be where, was it Mo Eggers said, where he'll forget his password within a week or something?
Yeah, man. They got phones save those now.
That's true. That's true. Well, hey, it's been great catching up with you. We hope to do these Welcome to the Jungle episodes each week, heading into a new matchup for the Bengals. They've got the bye coming up, so we'll have to figure out that as well. But awesome to catch up with you about the Cincinnati Bengals.
Likewise. Thanks, Seth.